Welcome again to another edition of the GreenBaje podcast. That is Ajay. Got my point right tonight. He is the green. I am the Bidge. Name is Ken. And welcome again to the fourth edition of the GreenBaje podcast. And this week, we do have some interesting topics of conversation. I know that it might get a little bit heated at some point. We'll see how it goes. But this week, we had the championship round. This weekend was the championship round of the NFL playoffs, where the GOAT, Tom Brady, was up against another old boy in Aaron Rodgers on the NFC side. It still sounds a little foreign to talk about Brady in the NFC, but we'll get into that. And then on the AFC, we had what they call the young GOAT, Patrick Mahomes. He was up against Josh Allen and the Bills. Now, I know that right now, when we're looking at the NFL and we're looking at the teams that are coming forward and actually progressing, it seems like if all of the good young stars are over in the AFC side. We have lots of young, emerging, promising talent in the AFC, whereas the NFC seems to be still hanging around with the old guard. But the winds of change are blowing, and depending on how we get through these topics, we may talk about some of that too. But first, I think that the best place to start would be Tampa Bay and Green Bay. So we had Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going over to Lambeau Field in the snow. The Florida boys were heading up into the cold to stake a claim to get to the big dance. You know, they wanted to get to the Super Bowl. And I know that the majority of the Tampa Bay disciples
Here we go.
are in full voice today. You know, they are elated because their guy has now made it to his 10th Super Bowl in 21 seasons. I mean, it is incredible. 21 seasons, 10 Super Bowl appearances, all of the postseason records that you can think of. Mr. Brady pretty much has them all. But here's my question to you, AJ. This is how we kick this one off. Was this game more about Tampa Bay winning it or Green Bay losing it? No, I taking a little bit of the first tape play, but we gotta ask a question to get started.
All right. Honestly, I'm still going to say that it was about Tampa Bay winning it. Green Bay didn't play their best, but you know what? Even and obviously, you know what? Let me start with Tom. Ken,
you go ahead.
I'm gonna tell you a little story. I'm gonna tell you a story. Rest in peace, buddy, man. So yeah. So the years is in the early 2000s. I still cannot remember the year. And I have one of my cousins is down by me. He has his PlayStation 2, like the latest console on the market. Man has Madden, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've never played Madden at this point in time. Like I said, early 2000s, I wasn't an avid follower of the sport. I wasn't an avid watcher of games. I used to follow scores. You know, there were names I knew, cool. And wasn't an avid watcher. Cousin comes to me and says, you know what? Let you play Madden. Pick a strong team. It don't matter who. I pick the weakest team in the game. I beat you. I was like, all right, cool. I knew the name the Patriots. They had actually won the Super Bowl that would have preceded that release of Madden. So I was like, all right.
2002 season then.
It could be. Because, well, don't forget they did win 3 in that 4-year span. So it is one of them. I can't remember exactly. Honestly, I can't remember the year. Either way, so he made that mistake, and I cut him up in every single game, right? With the pass, with Tom Brady as QB. And that, my friend, is how I began this journey, right? I've been a fan of it ever since. It is Tom who got me, because I started to understand a bit more from playing Madden, started to follow the parts more. And actually, the first loss to the Giants is when it really hit me that year. This was actually my team, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying all that to say Tom Brady's incredible, and I'm honored to have been a fan. No, to get back to more recent events, yesterday, that's so much time. We're talking almost 20 years ago now. Yesterday, man is 43 years old. He started off the game playing incredibly. To be honest, in one of the groups, it was said that, oh, the first drive wasn't fantastic. That was an excellent drive. The very first drive, it was excellent. He was pinpoint on his throws. Some of the routes were good, and they converted. It was three third downs on that drive. And the touchdown itself to Mike Evans was a third down as well. Yeah. So yeah, they started off well. Tom did not play well in the second half at all. To the point where if they had lost, that loss would have been on him. But the reason why I'm saying this is still about the Bucks winning it is because they were better coached and they were prepared. They knew what they were going to do, right? And as much as Green Bay didn't look up to the challenge, or like they weren't, Green Bay like wasn't able to capitalize on Brady's mistakes and whatnot. But if you realize how Tampa Bay, their defense was up to par on the day. First of all, the Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barrett were incredible for the entire day. The men were relentless with pressure on Aaron Rodgers, right? I think it was Shaq Barrett that got like 3 sacks. JPP had another 2. Relentless with the pressure, right? On Todd Bowles did an amazing job with them defensively, because when Tom almost put them in hot water, he had the right defensive schemes to get them out of it, which is why I'm saying this is more about Tampa Bay, because this entire team was complete and ready to compete. So there were 3 turnovers on. It was 3 consecutive drives, right? And Green Bay turned only 1 into points. And then they went for the 2-point conversion, the one that Equanimous St. Brown dropped that was right on his numbers, right? At the end of the day, Ken, I don't care how badly Green Bay played. There's been debate as to whether Aaron Rodgers choked. We know Kevin King was cooked for the entire day, and when they noticed that, when Tampa Bay noticed that, they kept targeting him instead of Jair Alexander. We know Jair Alexander is solid, right? So he wasn't really, they weren't really putting the ball on his side. But this is about Tampa Bay, because they were prepared offensively, and even when the offense wasn't getting it going, the defense was ready. And those are the types of teams you need to win. Like, as much as the QB is the most important position, he's not going to have a spectacular game all the time, and you need a defense to be able to make stops. They did it with aplomb. So this is more about Tampa Bay winning it than Green Bay losing it.
So you made some very interesting points that I had here noted, and I'm not going to let you get away with it, because you're going to ease some of the statements and some of the criticism that I am the same way you held my feet to the fire last week. I got some fire for your boy. But before I get there, to answer the question that I asked, I agree that this game was more about Tampa Bay, the team, winning the game than Green Bay necessarily losing the game. Because as you mentioned, Green Bay did not seem to have a proper answer for the rush of Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul. And Rodgers was under duress a lot of the time. There were plays where they did not give him an opportunity to set his feet, to be able to try to throw the ball down the field. So he was just under duress, and he did not necessarily handle the pressure as well as we would like to think. One of the things that a lot of people going into this game, they were always making mention of, was that Rodgers, the whole conversation going back to the beginning of the season from the NFL draft, it was that Green Bay did not draft any skilled position players to help him in the first round. Instead, they decided to bring in a quarterback who has not taken a snap all season. So obviously he was a project for the future. And let's be honest, there's no way that another quarterback is going to take any first team snaps as long as Aaron Rodgers is healthy. But the lack of having proper skill position talent around him showed up in this game because Marquez Valdez-Scantling, he's a decent wide receiver. He drops the ball too many times. And he's extremely good at running fast and running far. But when it comes to the more complex routes, you don't really see. Well, let's put it this way. We might not know just how many routes he can run because he isn't asked to run very many. The majority of the routes, all of the different moves and releases at the line, those go towards Devontae Adams, who, by his usual stellar marks, did not have the greatest game either. 9 catches, 67 yards, 1 touchdown. 9 catches
He was
in
kept out of the game though. Yeah.
exactly. And it's the same thing that would happen to most number one receivers when you get into this position of the playoffs. You're not going to let the team's best players beat you. So Rodgers went 33 or 48 for 346 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. I guess I can come back to that interception. But I want to make a point here about Rodgers based on something that you said last week. I heard you say, I know you saw the look on my face. I didn't respond to it because at that time, I figured to respond to a lot of what you said about Drew Brees, we'll go into the whole conversation about Brees that I believe is better suited for when he makes his announcement and does what the football world expects, which is to retire. However, last week you said that you have Brady and Rodgers on a level that Brees does not match up to because of what those two have done. So, all right, go ahead.
No. Nah. No, finish your point. Finish your point.
Okay, all right, cool. So let's see what Rodgers has done so far. Rodgers has won 1 Super Bowl. Brees has also won 1 Super Bowl. Rodgers has been to the NFC Championship game 5 times. He's won one of them. Brees has been to the NFC Championship game 1 time. He's won one of them. In the NFL, there are 12 seasons where quarterbacks have had 5,000 passing yards. Brees has 5 of them by himself. Rodgers has 1 of them. When you talk about accuracy and all of those and passing yards, passing touchdowns, Brees is ahead of Rodgers by some distance. Yet somehow you have Rodgers placed above Brees, even though the same way how you say that Brees is not that guy and he can't do it and he hasn't done it, those same criticisms can be leveled at Aaron Rodgers. And this week, he had the opportunity to do it. We talk about the best quarterbacks. They have a certain degree of clout. They have a certain amount of leeway where they can change things at the line. They can audible. They can see something different, and they can reroute the receivers. They can get the running backs to run in a different. They can do all kinds of different things. I mean, Rodgers had the opportunity to do it. I mean, 346 yards, 3 touchdowns. I can't say that he had a bad game. But in the fourth quarter, what happened? Where was he? He wasn't there. He wasn't found. And the Packers lost 31-26.
Right. So here's the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
This came a little sooner than I expected, but I'm still prepared for you because my argument was it wasn't just about what he is. Yes, I did mention what he has done, and you mentioned that's part of it. But I realize you deliberately. I'm pretty sure you deliberately left out the fact that Aaron Rodgers is a 2-time league MVP. Drew Brees ain't got none of them, and he more than likely will get his 3rd this season. Drew Brees has none of those. No, I was very specific. I'm very meticulous in what I say. To me, Drew Brees is not, and I've said he's not an elite QB. because there's no way you could tell me that after winning that one Super Bowl with that combination supposedly of him and Sean Payton, who's supposed to be a good coach, and Sean Payton, yes, is a better coach than Aaron Rodgers has had in his entire career, right? Y'all only got back to to the NFC Championship game. You got back to it once. Aaron Rodgers with Mike McCarthy, who neither of us rated above Sean Payton. We probably don't even know if you rated above LaFleur at this point. Got to that NFC Championship game twice. No, back-to-back years with LaFleur. So there's still a distinct level of a difference there. You mentioned the passing stats. I would never, ever say that Drew Brees is not an elite passer. I've never ever seen he's not an elite passer. But
so how can he be an elite passer and not an elite QB? Because
mental. I don't. Hold on. And you're talking about the game yesterday, right? But let's not also forget that for the most part, Rodgers didn't get it done. But we know that his stats still were not bad. Like, they went out of the game completely up until, and obviously the most talked about point at this juncture is the fact that LaFleur didn't go for it on the fourth down, right?
Yeah,
thinking that had the three timeout, and still the 2-minute warning. So yeah, it was like 4 times. Yeah, studying analytics and made the wrong decision.
Yes.
Yeah. Sean, you know, Sean Payton was putting the ball in Drew Brees' hands in that situation, right?
Yep, of course.
Good. LaFleur should have put the ball in Aaron Rodgers' hands. That was a mistake. So at this point, we don't even know if he could have won, because it's not like he was given the opportunity and failed. He wasn't even given the opportunity at all. That's an indictment on LaFleur, though. In the grand scheme of things, I get what they're saying. He did not get it done. But I still feel that Rodgers does more with less. This year, when it was actually Tavon Austin. So I don't know if you heard this stat that this year, the whatever was the first pass that Rodgers threw to Tavon Austin was the first time he threw a pass to a receiver that was a first-round pick in his entire career. Even Tay wasn't first round, but still, and Tay is possibly the best he's had in a while, right? Saying like Joey Nelson and them sort of boys. But the fact of the matter is he's done more with arguably less. He can do more. He's gotten at least to the NFC Championship game a few times. Yeah, he didn't get over that hump, but still, that is more to me. And just mentally, I just don't get it. I'll admit there were instances yesterday where I feel like he did look a little mentally frail and frazzled. Like, you could see he gets a bit wired, and when things ain't going his way, his leadership has kind of always come into question, right? Get all that, but still, I feel like already he's done. Based on eye test alone, he can do more. Passing, maybe not. Drew Brees is more accurate. Yeah, I'll give you all. Drew Brees has all the stats and everything, but I just never have gotten that vibe from Drew Brees. After that one Super Bowl, I've never gotten the vibe that he mentally is strong enough to carry that team there to just get you over the hump. I just don't.
See, no, this is right. So, this is where I could call you a hater, right? But at this point, we're not really talking. We ain't really need to bring back up Brees. We could save Brees for later. We can save Brees for another time. But I coming now for you, boy, because as I was watching that game, I was making copious notes as to what I was saying. Like, I could show you the paragraph. Like, it's not even really showing out here because of the light, but you can see that paragraph I have from that game. And I tweeted out from our show account that Brady was literally tearing apart the Packers in the first half. He had 202 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first half, right? No, I know that one of the things people often talk about with these quarterbacks, and should we decide if a quarterback is good or great, is what does he do when the play breaks down? What does he do when he's under pressure? And for many years, we haven't really seen a lot of Brady under too much pressure because he usually gets the ball up very quick. However, 2020 to 2021, this season we saw that Brady can be got if you put him under pressure. A lot of the criticisms that people have put towards Baker Mayfield, me included, and Josh Allen to a lesser extent, and others, was what happens to you when you get under pressure. So remember, I said Brady had 202 yards at the half, 2 touchdowns. So if we were to take the first half out and just put the second half, just look at the second half by itself. What do we have? No, I was trying to find how many completions to attempts in the first half. I didn't make a note of it when they put the graphic up at halftime, and I can't find it back. But Brady has 78 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 picks. Now, you mentioned that if the Bucks had lost this game, it would have been on Brady. Brady did his absolute best to give it away in that second half because the first pick was bad. The second pick, like, I don't know how Mike Evans was supposed to catch that ball.
Like, and when we spoke, I agreed. That was an uncatchable ball.
Right, you agree with me.
I did say that all 3 picks were on him, you know. I did admit that.
I understand it, but no, I'm not letting you just get away with just saying.
Nah, it's nothing to get away with. As you read, go ahead. I'll be ready.
And then that third pick reminded me of a pick that I saw Jimmy Garoppolo throw last year. When he was under so much pressure, he just shut his eyes and threw the ball up in the air and hoped for the best. And the best was it didn't fall out of bounds. It dropped straight into a man's hand. Brady was not good. If you take that full game into consideration, as good as he was in the first half, he was worse in the second. And there's a better executing GreenBaje, not even necessarily calling some other team. GreenBaje executing better in that second half. They had every opportunity to win that game because Tom was doing his best to just hand it to them. It was like, Rodgers, take this, please take this. Go ahead to the Super Bowl because I got enough. They're talking about how they had 7 rings in that game and how Brady got 6. So apparently he, like, in the second half, he just told himself, well, really and truly, I don't need to go get another one. Rodgers needs to cement his legacy. So I'm just going to give the ball away as much as I can. Your response.
I mean, yeah, he did give away. He did have 3 terrible giveaways, and I admitted that to you too. Mind you, there's some Brady apologists. I even heard Skip saying this morning that Mike Evans should have caught that ball. I'm like, nah, that's ridiculous.
He would have
even
to
looking at the replay.
He would have to disconnect his wrists and throw his hands up to catch that.
Looking at the replay, I cannot see what more Mike Evans would have done. And you know what's a funny thing? All 3 of those picks were on shots to Mike Evans, you know. All 3 of them. Yeah, because he does like to do that. And even the last one was the worst for me too, because he doesn't usually make plays like that where he would just like toss it up in the air when he can't see where he's throwing to. But his head was up in the air, and like I was like, what? I don't understand. He had a bad phase of the game. I'll give you that. At the end of the day,
a phase. A half is
not. It wasn't the entire half, though. That's the thing. He still managed the game. He still managed the game after that when they needed it. Coming down to the end of the game, he still managed it.
78 yards and 3 picks. He almost had a Peterman.
I'm talking eye test after that. I'm talking eye test. You can't just go on the stats after that. I'm talking eye test.
But he was not good.
After that, because those are 3 consecutive drives. After that phase, he still didn't go back to what he was doing in the first half, but he managed the game out. He did. He really did. And the key, the one that sealed it was like a I think was it a screen to Godwin? It was Godwin that caught it. I remember that much. There was a completion to Gronk, which was like the only thing that Gronk did for the day. All he had to do after that was manage, and he did. He leveled back out and he managed the game. That's what he brings. That's what he brings. Yes, he was terrible for that period, and he almost gave it away. I completely admit that, to the point, like I said, if they had lost the game, if Green Bay was able to capitalize on those takeaways and they had lost the game, I'd have to say it was on Tom, right? But they didn't. So as badly as he played it, the team was ready, and then after that, caught himself, saw the game out. Game manager. That's what he had to do.
All right. Well, I mean, the only other thought I wanted to raise in this, you did mention it with Kevin King. I don't like Kevin King is getting eviscerated in every corner today.
Yeah, but he can't be back on that roster next year. He absolutely cannot be back on this roster next year. I don't see how he could show his face in the locker room again. In that locker room, that is. Can't happen.
All right. So the touchdown that he gave up with 8 seconds left, I went back to look at this play because I heard what they were saying on the broadcast, and I 100% agree. There is no way that you should be getting beat deep with 8 seconds left when you know that basically it's either a quick out, which means that they're going to have to try to kick this extremely long field goal, and you're down at that time. They were down 14-10, so the game was still very much in the balance. It was still very close, and I think that what King did is that he listened. He like everybody else, they heard them talking about Scotty Miller, and they described Scotty Miller in the ways that they described Julian Edelman and Wes Welker. This blue collar guy.
That'd be his fault. That'd be his fault.
It would be his. You need to study the tape, though. The one thing that Miller has that Edelman never had and Wes Welker never had is blistering pace. He is not just some little slot receiver that can just come and catch the ball 5 yards just so that we can keep the chains moving. No, Miller is the man that Tom looks for deep. The same way how they use Valdez-Scantling. Like, if you see Scott Miller line up on the outside and you are covering him, at that point in time, you have to tell yourself, there's no way this man gets past me. So
what's the worst thing? Sorry, just to interject slightly. What's the worst thing about it? The man wasn't even looking at Scott Miller. The man's attention is focused on the inside where there's already a safety covering that area. So what? And when I saw the play breakdown, right? He's looking inside and he literally has his hand out. Like how a parent would put their hand out when they had to stop real suddenly and you want your child to, have his hand out as if he thought that was supposed to stop Scott Miller from getting past him. And Tom saw it. He saw it. He saw the match. He realized where King's eyes was. Not realized. All right, well, he can't catch. And Scotty gone. Boom, dime on the dime. And he's like, and that was the beginning of the end for King. King could not recover after that. But sorry,
No, but I don't have a problem you interjecting there because I was moving on to the second part. So he then gets called for the defensive pass interference late in the game, which pretty much seals the game. It gives them the first down, which allows then Tampa Bay and Tom Brady to take knees and just run the clock out. But in his defense, though, we need to talk about this officiating because the interception that Rodgers threw in the first half, that was holding that wasn't called.
Right. So you remember as well, I told you I was kind of in and out of the first half. So I wasn't watching intently. My TV was on mute as well. So I did not see that play. So I'm not going to argue and say not. I can't argue against that one because I saw someone else say that was the case as well. I did not see the
Murphy Bunting was holding the entire game. And the rest were not calling any of it. To be fair, King's hold, his pass interference, it was too obvious not to call. The man's shirt was literally stretched out half a yard behind him. So he didn't give the refs much of a choice. But the one thing I had always appreciated about the NFL versus the NBA was that
Mm-hmm.
a foul was a foul regardless of when it happened and where it happened. So in week one, a foul was the same thing that you would see in the championship game or the Super Bowl. So if a hold was being called back then, it would still be called in the later games. For some reason, this weekend, things that were getting called all season long, all of a sudden the flags, like they just lost them. And it was frustrating for me to watch it. I can't even say as a casual fan because my rooting interest was not for Brady to make it to the Super Bowl. Not even for Aaron Rodgers and the Packers to get it because
For
I don't
shame,
really have a
Ken.
lot of love
For
for
shame.
Aaron Rodgers either. But
For shame.
my rooting interest was Brady must not make it to the Super Bowl. And the refs did just enough to keep the game going in such a way that it worked out advantageous for the Buccaneers. And then they found their flags that they had swallowed all game long to call it on the Packers. That, like I said, at the end of the day, it was a call that had to be made. But after not calling it all game long, then to call it in this moment, it will sting. It will sting if you do not have Buccaneers rooting interests.
While I get all that, you know that is the least discussed topic about that entire game today.
Of course.
Like no
Of
one
course.
cares. No one cares.
Yeah, I mean,
It is a no. It is a valid point, and I would not say that it didn't have any effect on the game. But in the grand scheme of things, I don't think that it was. I don't think it was even the main reason why the Packers lost. Like I said in one of the groups before, the Bucks are a better team. They were better coached. They were better prepared. So even when their quarterback was not doing it, the defense was able to make the stops. That's why I have two sides of the ball, right? It's not the same. It's not the same for Green Bay. Overall, they just didn't look like they deserved to win the game. So I can't really be upset with the result, regardless of the little things that happened. Like
along the way.
yeah, your defense get torched. And to be fair, Green Bay's defense wasn't good at the beginning of the year. They were the worst defense in like the first 3 weeks. They got marginally better as it progressed. But not talking about Todd Bowles, Tom and that offense. Why the offensive coordinator name not even coming to mind now?
Leftwich, Byron Leftwich.
Yeah, Byron Leftwich, right. Like I said, they were prepared in how they were going to go about attacking and basically, yeah, like attacking the Packers defense and getting their schemes. I don't know why I'm losing what I was saying, but either way, yeah, they were more prepared. That's all I'm trying to say. So while I do agree with you that it was a talking point, and I do have to admit as well, it would seem inconsistent because yeah, there was another call that wasn't that was missed as well. I think it was on Lazard again. It was saying that Lazard was being held for the entire game. I did not see replays specifically of like just the holes or whatever, but I also in discussion heard that holes was happening all over the place. Some was called, some wasn't. That's cool, but at the end of the day, I really don't. I don't blame the refs. Green Bay just didn't look prepared. If I feel like if the game were a little closer, you know what? No, I still don't blame refs. I never do. I can't. I don't do it anymore. I can't.
Okay. Well, I think we have given enough to that game. There are other little things that I would like to highlight, but
I'm
I'm
pretty
pretty
sure they'll
sure
come
that
up in
they'll
time.
come up. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they'll come up in 2 weeks' time. So I'll save those for then. Let's move on. Second game of the day, the AFC Championship game. We had the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen and company, going up into Arrowhead to take on the Chiefs. And we both picked the Chiefs to win this game. And from very early on, like I missed the majority of the Chiefs' first drive. I wasn't in front of the TV. When it came back, I saw they were
Wasn't
punting.
actually either. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
I
it's like
actually got back after that on the it would have been on the Bills' second drive when I got back and they were up and yeah. Okay.
right. So the one thing I had applauded Sean McDermott for very early on was that he seemed to have come with an aggressive mindset. He understood that he needed to pretty much get points on every drive because if he wasn't getting points, chances are they were going to get blown up. So on the very first drive, they had a 4th and 1 at Kansas City's 49. They went for it and they got it. They finished that drive with a field goal by Tyler Bass, 51 yards. Cool. Kansas City kicks a punt on their first drive. And then, I mean, like, I remember when I was watching how bad Green Bay had started that game and how like things really weren't going well for them and everything was working for the Buccaneers. I had asked if they had paid the voodoo man to put something upon Green Bay because it was looking real bad. So when Buffalo kicks their punt on their second drive and Hardman muffs it and the ball is then like taken out, I think either from the 4 or from the 1 or something like that. I'm like,
Yeah,
so,
it was essentially like the one or something like that.
and then they
Some
scored a touchdown. I'm like, wait a second. So so like Buffalo employed the same voodoo man because I I am not recognizing the Kansas City Chiefs at this point. And that's where Josh Allen got his first touchdown pass when he passed it to Knox, and then they missed the point after.
Mhm.
Everybody know, like, we're not breaking no news here. Missing a PAT against the Chiefs, where you have a chance to put the 10-love in a hole, that's a problem. However, the Chiefs have been coming back from double-digit deficits pretty much this entire run that they've been having. They've been consistent with that. So I'm watching this game. I'm just here looking at my notes because like I literally pretty much like took down all of the major things. But what I do want to highlight for sure, Hardman, after his muffed punt, he then has 3 touches, 54 yards, and a touchdown. And within there, it is the end around 50-yard run where he got some good blocks, he put on the Jets, and he almost broke it all the way out.
Mhm.
Tyreek Hill is hmm, Tyreek Hill is incredible. Let me start there. He is incredible. 9 catches, 172 yards, and not all of them were catches that he caught 20, 25 yards down the field. That man is incredible. Travis Kelsey,
Cannot keep that man in single coverage. You absolutely cannot.
double coverage is
Cannot.
not even a guarantee.
I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying it's still a better chance. I'm saying single coverage is like having no man at all.
Yes, yes, exactly. But that's what I'm
That's
trying to
my
say.
point. At
It,
least double coverage is some sort of effort. It shows some sort of effort. But single and to kind of let me just get a point in here while because
yeah, go ahead.
you talked about them going down and whatnot, right? So when
Mhm.
I got back in the house, the score was actually it was actually they were down 3, and then it was the Bills drive. And so yeah, they ended up punting, and then that's when they recovered the punt from Hardman and whatnot. So even after that touchdown pass to Knox, and they go up and Tyler Bass miss an extra point, but it's like 9-zip, and even at that point, I'm like, all right, this is not good enough. Still, like, yeah, I wasn't even the slightest bit worried for Kansas City because I know for sure 30 points at least was going to come. So it don't even matter when the Bills scored to me. If they scored 9, if they scored 15 in the first quarter, and they didn't get anything else, I know what they had to do was put up 30 points in that game. So the 9 wasn't really bothering me. Like it didn't make me for 1 second doubt Kansas City. And like you said, lo and behold, everything came to fruition. Travis Kelsey and Tyreek Hill again were tearing up.
Yep.
uh, and the Bills. And I remember there was a point in time we were watching, and I said, like, my wife was watching the game with me, and I said, I was screaming at the TV. I was like, you can't beat these men kicking field goals. and she just looked at me and laughed. And shortly thereafter, it was set on in the commentary box, right? Like, yeah, they need to capitalize on these drives and score touchdowns because field goals just won't cut it against this team.
It will not do it.
So said, so done. And I was just like, all right, well, the inevitable is about to happen. It sure enough did. I mean, wait, you could go ahead. I was resigned to the fact that this was going to happen.
No, for me, one of the things from what you just said. So, like, if Buffalo went up 15-0, I would even go so far as to say if they were up, let's say 2 touchdowns and a field goal, 17-0 on the Kansas City Chiefs. The prospect of Buffalo being able to close that game out against the Chiefs is significantly different to if it was the Ravens. Because you know that with the Ravens, they're just going to come out and just run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. Lamar is hardly going to pass. They're going to shorten the game that way. We had been saying this from the very beginning of the playoffs. Buffalo cannot run the ball. And it came out here again because you have a lead, but you can't run the ball to protect the lead. You can't shorten the game, so you have to keep passing. To try to get things done. And similar to what happened in the GreenBaje game, then we have McDermott getting, a little bit trying to find the most delicate way to put it. And I can't figure it out, so I can just go phrase it completely different. Yeah. He lacked the testicular fortitude to go for it in key moments when you have a quarterback the size of Josh Allen that can pretty much like plow through the lane. Josh Allen, he had 7 rushes for 88 yards in that game. So why aren't you've been leaning on his legs all season long? He has been your rushing game, similar to how Lamar has been critical for the Baltimore rushing game. But when you get into these key moments, you're not using his legs. You're not allowing him then to, go on a bootleg. We're not necessarily saying he can take a Taysom Hill quarterback power and run straight at the middle, but you design something, a read option, but again, if you go read option and nobody believes you're handing the ball off, they could just be coming for Josh Allen. So
yeah.
They've handicapped themselves to the point where you cannot expect that they're going to be able to run this ball credibly. And that means now you're going to get into the shootout with Patrick Mahomes. And there are very few gunslingers that will have any hope in winning that because his guns are bigger. When you have Tyreek Hill, 9 for 172, Kelsey, 13 for 118, and 2 touchdowns. Is it right?
I was saying, it's not as if we didn't expect this to happen. And then, what was one thing that kind of made me realize, all right, well, yeah, this is not going to end well. Devin Singletary dropped, I think it was a screen as well. He was wide open on the right. Josh tosses it to him. Man was wide open, and he would have had enough real estate in front of him to get the first down. Man completely dropped the ball. And I cannot remember seeing Devin Singletary in the game afterwards. It was strictly TJ Yeldon. And TJ Yeldon is not even the running back 2 in that team. The man is 3 or 4 or wherever he is. TJ Yeldon, and this is what I was just trying to check while you were talking to, because I wanted to see how often TJ Yeldon played this season. That was the 6th game the man played this season again. That was the 6th game that Yeldon apparently was involved in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In a game against Tennessee in October, he had 7 rushes. That was the most rushes he had all year. So the fact that TJ Yeldon is a man who, to me, he's similar to like what James White is for us. Like he could get lined up on the outside and he would, toss him, squeeze him and that kind of thing too. He's not really a a hardcore runner like a bell cow or anything like that. He's sort of similar to the rest of them because Singletary is no good to me. You know, Zach Moss, I don't see the big difference between him and Singletary, but Zach Moss was the one getting most of the goal line work during the season, and the man had to bring in T.J. Yeldon. And when I saw that, I was like, a man who hasn't played all season, essentially, he played about a quarter of the season, and this is a man who essentially is supposed to lead your running game. I was like, okay, the Bills don't have it. They don't. And then, like you said, McDermott wasn't even leaning on Josh Allen's running anymore. Was it like resignation? Did he expect like you can't be? Kansas City punted the ball once in this game
on the very first drive.
On the well, if that is not a signal that you have to be going for every single thing in this game, because Mahomes is getting these men into a good enough field position to whether it's eventually score a touchdown or at least have a field goal attempt. And like you said, like you can't not be going for it, and you don't even have a run. I guess they said they'll be back next year, but they really do need somebody to run. Because I actually tweeted that out. The Bills need a runner. They need a running back. They really do.
No, but the thing is, like one of the things that I was looking at too, as you mentioned, you had Kansas City first drive was a punt, touchdown, kneel down first half. That's the end of the first half. So it's like, all right, you really need to try to get something going. And I remember last season, not so much this season, but last season, one of the marks of the Buffalo Bills team was that their defense was very, very strong. And where Josh Allen was still ascending, he was still getting better. They showed a graphic where it said that Allen had 10 touchdown passes his first season. He had 20 the last year, and he had 40 this season. So the defense was necessary, was needed to help carry the Bills through. But their defense is kind of fallen off this season. And with the defense falling off like that, then it is all on Josh. And if your defense has no hope to stop the Chiefs, like I can just check this out there. When the Saints played the Chiefs had a lot of yards and they scored a good few points. I can't remember what the final score was. But when you looked at how many plays they ran to get those yards, they were averaging like 4-point-something yards per play. The Saints defense was good enough to stymie them on the day, but we had Breeze on the center. He was no coming back from having all those crack ribs, and our offense was not in the place that it needed to be to keep up while our defense was stymieing them. And nobody else has been able to play them as tough as we did. And you see what happens in this game. All right. So we've covered all of the recap from this weekend. And we know that we have basically a week off because this week would normally be Pro Bowl week, but because of COVID, we have no Pro Bowl. So I figure that we could spend a little time talking about some of the other goings on outside of the games in the NFL. And primarily with this quarterback situation, because we have been hearing that quarterback of the Houston Texans, Deshaun Watson, he is very upset with the organization. And he is now at the point that he wants out. That's what we're hearing, but he's not come out and said anything. We've not seen any official trade requests having been filed. But Watson wants out of Houston, which, if I'm Houston, I know Bill O'Brien is gone, but you got to look at yourself and see what created this situation in the first place. Because O'Brien, as GM, did so much trash. So much foolishness. Because you
Yeah.
can't tell me that it makes sense on any level to trade a popular player in your locker room in DeAndre Hopkins, a man that doesn't get himself in any trouble outside of the game. He doesn't get himself in any trouble in the game. He just comes out, he runs his routes, he catches his balls, he scores his touchdown. He doesn't even have big, elaborate celebrations. He catches his balls in the end zone, he has it off, he runs back to the sideline. But you're going to trade him for David Johnson from the Cardinals with one of the worst contracts in the NFL, a man who has not had good production from the time he signed this contract. Yeah, he did have some injuries and stuff, but at the same time, he has not been given. He didn't give good production. You traded for Larry Tunsil, but you gave up the farm to get him from the Dolphins. So as GM, he didn't do a good job. The season started horribly, but somehow Deshaun Watson still finishes as the passing leader in the NFL. But your quarterback is telling you, okay, so these are the kind of people, these are the people that we want you to take a look at for GM. And you don't look at the man's list. You don't consult the man at all before you make the hire to bring in Pelissero, I think is his name. That was your former chaplain, I think it was, in New England. So you bring in this guy and he's saying, okay, these are the GMs I would like to work with, but I also like you to bring in the enemy, and you don't even call the man for an interview. So I don't know about you. Actually, no, let me rephrase that. I know that you, like me, would be glad if your team would pick up the phone and call the Texans and tell them, hey, about Deshaun. But if you are the Texans, what does it take for you to move him? And when does it happen?
Wow. This is always a waiting game. I honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if in if they're smart and they try to play chess with it, they would probably drag this out closer to the time of the draft, potentially to see what they could get, like who would be willing to do something right before, see what picks they could get. I mean, it would definitely take, if you get rid of Deshaun at this point, where do you go? What exactly is your plan from here? Is it rebuilding? I would think that from here, you're not just, you can't trade Deshaun and get back to the same position, despite having DJ and Brandon Cooks. So from here, I feel like you're going back to rebuilding, though. So I would have to think that at this point it would be picks. You'd be looking at maybe one a player somewhere inside there to balance it out. But for the most part, I feel like it would be picks. What else can you? I don't see how. I don't see how if they're in this position, if I'm in this position, how I get Deshaun out and get somebody. You're not going to get anyone equally adept in terms of talent, right? I just don't see what. And I think the phrase you used was that Houston is a poison chalice at this point.
Yes, definitely.
So to hang on to that phrase, right? With the job not even being attractive, like I don't think anyone is coming in there now and expecting that Deshaun Watson is going to leave, and then the Houston Texans are going to be potentially challenging to win that division next year. So from here is rebuild for me, essentially.
Well, at this point, like you're saying that maybe it might be a rebuild. They have to tear that whole sucker down. Everybody that can move has to move.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
And
I don't see any other. I don't see any other way. I don't see any other way.
But
because even I mentioned DJ as well, but they would have to get him off because it would make no sense having him hang around for what it is they're trying to do post Deshaun. It would have to be a rebuild, especially him, like you said, with that contract. He needs to go. The Archer, Brandon Cooks, my guy, but he, as usual, he can get moved on to most likely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
poor fella.
you have to. Pardon?
Poor fella.
Yeah, I know, right?
Trade be it forever.
It's the man is terrible, but he just can't lock down a spot. He just ain't that guy. But yeah, I agree. Like it would have to be I really don't feel like there's another way. It has to be a rebuild. Tear it down, start from scratch.
See, but the problem that I think that Houston has in this entire scenario is that, as you mentioned, there is no way for them to get equal value for Deshaun Watson. And as much as they have the contract with Deshaun, to me, Deshaun has all the leverage because he is a marquee talent at a position that there's a significant market inefficiency because we have 32 teams and we don't have 32 good quarterbacks in the NFL. And let's play this out, right? So Houston decides we're not trading Deshaun unless you give us like 5 first-round picks or some mess like that, right? Of course, pretty much no team is going to take that deal. We have a couple teams right now that are up in the draft, and because of other trades that they've made, they do have a lot of draft capital, but nobody is going to just give away their future, even if it is for Deshaun Watson. If the price is 5 or 4 first-round picks, he might find a team desperate enough to do 4, but definitely not 5. I heard, what's his name? Nick Wright. He made a comment where he said that the deal, if he was trying to get Deshaun off the Texans, is that wherever team it is that is taking Deshaun, they're giving them their first-round pick every year that he's on the roster. It's so real good if you are the Houston Texans. No team is taking that deal. And if if Deshaun Watson says, trade me, I am not playing. And you say, you just signed the contract, get your butt in here and play these games. The man said, all right, I'm not going to do like Le'Veon and just sit down the entire year. Money is to be made, and I want to make my money. So Deshaun reports to camp, and he looks good in camp. And then, a la James Harden, first game of the season, Deshaun goes out there, throws for 350 yards, 4 touchdowns, runs for another 60 or 70, balls out. Game 2, Deshaun goes 7 of 25 for 88 yards and 4 picks. Game 3, he goes 10 of 30 for 105, no touchdowns, 3 picks. What are the Texans going to do? Because at that point, the season is lost. Regardless of what you do, I don't even remember who his backup is. It does not even matter. The backup can't come in at that point and save the season. You can't trade him for any big amount of anything because nobody's going to take him on. Well, nobody's going to give you what you want because you are desperate. Right now, Houston is doing their best to make it seem as if they are not desperate, and they are. They have a huge problem at quarterback, and you can't. It is like Houston Rockets playing James Harden, knowing that he wanted to leave. At least Harden, even though he was the most important piece according to their offense and the way how they had everything structured, you can easily sit him. You can run the offense a different way. You can do different things with the players that you have. You cannot do that if your quarterback is not bought in.
Yeah.
So as much as they're trying to posture and do all of this, it makes absolutely no sense. Right now, they should be holding an open bid, an open bidding. Everybody, we have an auction on Deshaun Watson. What you got? So if somebody comes and say, I can give you my first round pick and my second this year, and you get somebody else come and say, no, but what we gonna do, we can give you our first this year, and next year, second and fourth. It, I would be going around knocking at every door and be like, yeah, what you got? And whatever's the best deal, I take it and I run with it. I blow up the rest of the roster this offseason and do what I can to rebuild from the draft, free agency, wherever. But you have to do something. You can't let this continue even into draft season, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I wasn't thinking that they would let it carry on to that. For the most, I feel like they would carry it probably up to that time, close to that time, and then try to do something there. But no, I mean, in the grand scheme, I agree with you. Though I agree with you. Like, this team is just not well run, though. It's
At
just
all.
not well. It's just not well run. To be in this kind of position, though. Yeah, and one of the teams that was the names of teams that was being thrown around as a landing spot for him is Miami. I really don't want Deshaun in my division if he ain't coming at me. I don't want him. I don't want him. I can't take on Deshaun, Josh Allen, and I don't even know what the Jets about to do if this keep sticking with Sam or if it end up being Justin Fields. But either way, that's too much to handle in one season, man. But honestly, I don't feel Deshaun is going to be a Texan next season. I feel I mean, because based on I'm just going off of piggybacking off of your scenario where they decided not trading him and they keep him into next season, and that scenario they just outlined. I don't see how they do that. Like that is I won't even say that is the dumbest thing they could potentially do. Try to keep him because the man seems completely over the team and completely done with the Houston Texans. So I do not think it is in their best interest to even try to force him to stay. It doesn't make sense. You have to get rid of him. You have to get rid of him.
So imagine that we can actually
Let me not
say
say get rid of. Could get rid of makes it sound like like you said, like they have leverage. You have to let him go. Sorry.
you have to let him go.
You have to let him go. Yeah.
And is the same thing like what's happening in Detroit, because Stafford, he has officially come out and put in his trade request. So
this man take too long. He take too long. This one, I don't know why he was waiting. Sorry, go ahead.
No, but I agree. Like honestly, if I was Stafford, I would have tried to get out of Daily 2 or 3 years ago.
It's years no Ken. I don't know what Matty Stafford is doing there. He clearly has to be a really upstanding guy to want to stick it out in it. I would actually I don't see us being in the running to get Deshaun, but I would really like us to get Stafford, and I've been telling you so for a while. I would really like us to get Stafford. Yeah, he still won't got much to work with besides probably Jacoby Myers, but it's still be an upgrade. I don't care. It'll be an upgrade.
I mean,
I'm supposed to have a little money to throw around next year, a little bit. So yeah, it depends on what direction we plan to go here, because we've never seen us in a rebuilding phase, in the Bill era necessarily. So
yeah, I mean, y'all went straight from Drew Bledsoe to Tom Brady, and then you had Tom Brady for what, 20 seasons? Yeah, so you don't know what it's like to be, well, when I say A lots of B, I don't really know what it's like either, because I've had Breeze for my entire tenure with New Orleans. So we don't know what it's like to have to rebuild, like Cleveland, for example. Cleveland, they've been searching for a quarterback. And I'm not 100% sold that the phone one yet, but you're a lot more there than I am. But
guy, Baker, man.
Yeah, you're a guy. I can't wait for next season, because I know he can give us lots of content, him by himself. But I think though that Detroit is playing it the right way, and that is like, we gonna have a conversation. You say you want to leave, cool, no problem. We can let everybody know you want to leave. We can figure it out. Shortly before I came on here, I saw that one of the landing spots that apparently there is, well, he has interest in going to is Indianapolis.
Of course, that seems like one of the highly desired destinations.
But I
And
mean, Indianapolis does not, they have a good team. They
yeah,
have a
they do.
they have a very good balanced team. And you could say that they may have been a quarterback away. So bringing him in is going to put them in an even better stead next season, I believe. But I personally, just like you, I I honestly don't see how the Saints could get into the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes because the Texans think they have the power and they're calling for some. They can call for like the whole farm, like almost the whole draft, or first round picks for like 3 first round picks in the next 5 years or some mess like that. They can be doing that kind of stuff. So I can't see the Saints getting in there, but I believe that we could probably try to make a run at Stafford. Like I'm sure that as much as Stafford is looking at Indianapolis and saying Indianapolis would be a good landing spot for him, I don't see a better situation in the NFL for a quarterback looking for a new team than New Orleans if Drew Brees retires. Because we have it all. Receivers, well, tight end is still a developing position, but receivers, running back, defense, you don't have to work that hard, sir. Just come on in, do your thing. You will get your yards working with Peyton. But I think that next season, chances there might be the Jameis experience. I'd rather that than the Taysom Hill experience. But time will tell.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, yeah, as much as I berated your team last week, I have to admit that it would be an attractive destination if Drew was to make when he makes that retirement official. It would be an attractive destination. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. More so than the Pats, because in a dark place, boy.
Yeah. Y'all right now, y'all are looking for the light. Our light is shining bright. We just need a quarterback. So I think we have covered quite a bit tonight. This is a good spot to end. So again, to everyone, thank you for your time. We really appreciate you spending any of your day, night, whenever with us. Rate us, review us, like and subscribe. We still want to grow. We still want to get more people involved in this pod and see where we can take it. So once again, that is AJ. This is Ken. Got my direction right. We will see you next time.